All right, guys, welcome to the Baseline. Today we are here diving into an incredible journey out of Melinda Hughes and Arjen, the owners of the Strength Shoppe. Well, these two people have not only reshaped their own lives, but are empowering others to reach new heights, strengths, balance, and every aspect of life, right? So congratulations, guys, on your third location.
Thank you. We're in it right now. This is our third
This is the
location.
third one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember running studios way back, and I made it up to about 3. And one of the most difficult things was to manage 3 locations, 3 sets of staff, to be able to run around to over those 3 locations and then manage all the other aspects. How are you guys? Well, you manage every that's part of it.
You did that by yourself, right?
No, I actually had a lot. I was gonna say people behind me.
Okay.
That got lucky when time was right to be lucky. So. But the difference between what you guys are doing now and what I was doing back then is the technology is totally different. No, cell phones back then, websites were just coming out. But one of the things I really wanted to do is not only delve into your business, but what specifically makes you guys successful. Because there are so many people out there that open studios, open restaurants, open or become attorneys or whatever, but there are very few that end up being as successful as they want to be. Really want to start off first by how did you guys get into it? How did you transition from whatever it is that career line you were in? You were doing some actress, or you were in film. Now you guys transition into fitness. What was the motivation behind that, and how did you guys end up coming to open these places?
I moved to Los Angeles from Ohio to be an actress. I was doing acting and stand-up comedy, and I struggled with eating disorders for pretty much my teens and to my early 20s. So I was studying nutrition to try to heal myself. I knew that I was eating what I needed to eat to have a healthy body, but I didn't look the way that I wanted to look. So I Googled personal trainer Studio City, which is where I worked at the time. And I found a studio that does this type of training that we do at the Strength Shoppe. And my initial read of my mentor's website, I was like, this is a total gimmick. People will believe anything.
Yeah, it's located strength training, by the way, that we were talking about.
I closed out the website, and just as I closed out the website, whatever I was reading, I realized that made sense with what I knew about the body by studying nutrition. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go in and try it and see what it's like, and then, might as well try it once. And after trying it once, it was completely life-changing. I was like, oh, I've never exercised like this before. It was a completely different experience. And from there, I became a client at first. And then at some point, about 2 years after being a client, I started to work for her. So she mentored me. And then after about 2 years of that, I opened the Pasadena studio. So I got into strength training, being a strength training instructor, just, I don't know, luck, just fell into it. It was just something that changed my life, that I really believed in, that I wanted to bring to other people, that I felt like I was really good at. And yeah, that's kind of how I got there.
So when looking back on it all, prior to opening the studios or once you guys were in it, and if you were to look back at your eating disorder, what do you think that stemmed from? Because I think a lot of people could deal with that, whether it's,
Yeah, I think, so what I would struggle with in high school was I did struggle with bulimia, anorexia. So I was not eating a lot. And then when I did eat, I would, try to get rid of it. And then I was also struggling with something that they call exercise bulimia, which is over exercising. So it's just like, there's a bit of a fear of gaining weight. And so what it stemmed from for me was feeling like if I gained weight, I wouldn't look a certain way. And if I didn't look a certain way, I wouldn't be loved and accepted by either my peers or in a relationship. And I so wanted love. I so wanted to be accepted. I wanted to be good enough, whether that was to be cast in a play or just what your family would say about you. I know a lot of, especially women growing up, the compliments you get are like, oh, you look very pretty. So that, there's a big focus on what you look like. And so for me, it was just an effort to be worthy of love from whoever I wanted love from at that moment,
That's interesting because it's such an obstacle. It's an adversity to overcome. I've always been a believer that adversity is a catalyst of strength or
Yeah.
to grow a certain kind of strength.
Absolutely.
And with the strength training that you're going through and becoming an instructor in that sense, what do you think are the elements of your training style or what you went through your training that helped you kind of reconcile the eating disorder aspect or the elements of what caused your eating disorder? Does that question make
Yeah, it totally does. So for the eating portion of it with the anorexia and bulimia, I had a kind of like one of those moments where you had to make a decision. So I had been invited to a friend's birthday party, and this was after I'd moved to Los Angeles. So I started having trouble with food, my relationship with food, the eating disorders started when I was in high school. And I would go into counseling and get help, and then it would be fine. And then it started again in college, and then would kind of resurface continuously. And so at this moment, I was in my early 20s, and it resurfaced again. And it would always resurface in a way, like I said, where things weren't going the way that I wanted them to go. Either I didn't have a boyfriend, or I wasn't getting work as an actress, or I didn't have a lot of friends at school. And so in an effort to try to fix those issues in my life, it was like the focus was put on, well, I'm not pretty enough. I don't look good enough. So I've got to change that, and then all these other things will fall into place. And so I went to this birthday party, and as I was driving there and for like 2 days before this birthday party, I'm like, I'm not going to have any cake. I'm not going to have any cake. As I was keeping myself on a very strict diet. And when I got to the party, I felt really bad because it was a homemade cake. And so I ended up having some and then basically raced home to get rid of it. And after I got rid of it, I was on the bathroom floor just like, oh my God, am I going to continue to live my life like this? This is a horrible way to live. I was like, I was in a lot of emotional pain. I was in physical pain because of what I just did. And my parents were in the dental field, so I knew that like what I was doing was not good for my teeth. It erodes your enamel. And so I was just like, this is not healthy. And I recognized in that moment, this is not healthy. This is not a way to live. If I have children someday, which I had wanted at that point, I don't want to pass this on. I want to be able to teach them how to take care of their bodies in a healthy way. And so that's when I decided that I was going to study nutrition. And so that's when I enrolled in my nutrition program. I now have a master's in nutrition. And through learning about food and what food does to your body and what starving yourself does to your body and what these behaviors that I was engaging in, what that was doing to my body was enough for me to be like, that's not the way to take care of myself. And so I learned the way to take care of myself with food, and that changed everything for food with me. When I found this type of strength training, that's what changed exercise for me. So I was over-exercising. I was exercising for an hour and a half every day. I was doing what I call heroic bouts of exercise, where you're really pushing and really punishing yourself. And if I didn't have time to exercise on a particular day, there were feelings of like guilt or shame. And the exercise that I was doing was very ineffective, but I didn't know it was ineffective. I just thought I needed to do more and more and more and more of it. So learning this method in that very first session changed that for me, and certainly continuing to do it for those 2 years. Not only did I feel a lot healthier, I was a lot stronger. I used to suffer from debilitating knee pain when I would walk any sort of distance. And it was because with all of the, running on the treadmill that I'd forced myself to do over the last however many years it was, the muscles that supported my knee joints had eroded, because repetitive exercise like that, you actually can lose muscle. So my knee joints weren't properly supported. And when I would walk long distances, it would cause inflammation, which I would experience as pain and swelling. I had gone to the emergency room in the past because of this knee pain. And the doctors there told me that I had something called patellofemoral syndrome, and that was just genetic and that was just the way it is. And I was in my 20s. So what I learned from doing this method of strength training with my mentor was that it was just because my knee muscles weren't strong enough to support the joints. And when I strengthened the muscles that supported my knee joints, that pain disappeared. I'm 44 now. It's never returned. It wasn't something that was genetic that I would have to live with. It was just that the exercise that I was doing at the time was the opposite of healthy. And this that I now do and teach other people to do, that we teach other people to do, is healthy. It's health promoting. It's about making your body strong and healthy. It's the right amount of exercise with the right amount of recovery time. And that was that's what healed my destructive relationship with exercise and over exercising.
So if you had to identify or name something that's psychologically different about you from prior to your training and then post once you've done a thing, what do you think psychologically, or a couple of things psychologically, you could identify the most has changed in regards to you?
When you learn how your behavior is actually hurting you, it was like, oh, well, I don't want to hurt myself. I'm not trying to be destructive to my body. So that's the biggest piece, is instead of looking at my relationship with food or my relationship with exercise as something where I need to punish myself into looking a certain way, it's more about like, what does my body need to be healthy, strong, and for me to support my body. It's more about the nourishment of my body. Exercise is used, food is used to nourish my body and keep me strong and healthy, instead of punishing myself for not looking a certain way, which I think is a really big shift.
Yeah. Well, it's really inspirational that you were able to overcome so much adversity and then turn it into something that not only helps you in terms of business, but is helping so many other people overcome possibly whatever they're dealing with too in terms of their own personal adversity. But Arjen, is also inspired very much by your story of coming here from an immigration standpoint, because my family's from India. One of the things that they have a very similar story about is coming with $25 in their pocket, nothing other than the clothes on their back, and they come to America, this great country where all this opportunity lies, and they start and end up being these amazing successes, much like you have. And one of the things that's always been on my mind in terms of whether I have the same type of courage is coming into a new country, not necessarily knowing the language, the culture.
I think that's kind of started like really early, just in my childhood journey. I did not really feel like I fitted in at school. I was bullied a lot, and at home I was kind of like in a similar situation. I'm very much the middle child, so sort of the forgotten one, like figure it out for yourself. And my parents thought that tough love would be the best result on me, because that's how you get the most out of me. And so what that kind of made me, I think, is like sort of like a little stubborn, a little bit like I need to do it my way and I have something to prove. And so growing up in the Netherlands, I just quickly felt like that was too small for me, and I knew there was something else out there, and I needed to find that, because Holland was, too small of a pond for me. And so that kind of like gave me a drive to, might be unhealthy in a weird way, but like very much like from a young age, that I have to prove myself, because of the things that happened at school and the things that happened at home, that I had something like I need to prove to my dad that I am worthy in a way. And so I think once you are taught that, you go out into the world and you start doing everything you can to prove yourself. So if that means moving to a different country with nothing in your pocket, then, then that's what we're going to do, because that will show that I am, worthy or more special than, like the I'll show you type of thing. And that's with the whole, like, I'll show you mentality is kind of like how I ended up in America, into one of the industries of which is a very cutthroat business and difficult to really establish yourself in because of the nepotism. And if you're from, like, yes, I am a white Caucasian, but I'm also like a Dutch guy. There is no, like, if you're German and you come to America, there's a whole network. If you're Jewish, you come from Israel, there's a whole network. If you're Armenian, there's a massive amount of Armenians. So there's groups here. there's no group for Dutch people. Like, you'll find some Dutch people when the Netherlands is playing soccer. You'll find a bar with a couple of them, but there's no real network. There was no family for me here. And it was, like you said, like a long, long time ago. I think making that choice now is easier because of FaceTime and everything else. But when I moved here, I was 23. And if I would want to talk to my parents, it was once every month, I would say, on a calling card that lasted 2 minutes, and then they had to call me back collect. You know, like, you were away from your family. And now I think making a step to a different country is easier. But I think, like, what moved me is that I had something to prove. Like, I had a dream. I believed, I guess, somewhere that I could prove myself. Yeah,
So you came here specifically with the film industry in mind.
yeah.
And so when you first got here, tell us the story of how you broke into the film industry, because like you said, it's very difficult to crack into, and there's nepotism and different avenues. And how did you manage to create your own door? How did you end up breaking into the film industry?
Yeah, I kind of started in Holland. Like, my parents always said, like, you need to do something like a solid basis first. So I studied business management. And after that, I was allowed to do something more creative. So during my study, my thesis, instead of starting a new company or launching a new product, I asked if it was okay to launch a new television show, because that's where I had my interest in. And my school at the time said, yeah, that's cool. So that's how I ended up in Hilversum, which is the Hollywood of Holland, I would say, and worked there for a production company that did scripted and reality. Like, and I kind of like started in the reality division of that, but the scripted really had my attention. So when I realized I really enjoyed that, I tested that after my thesis, after I graduated, by going to the US, and I did New York Film Academy here, which was a very short course, like 2 or 3 months. And yeah, really enjoyed that, liked being here. So I kind of like decided that I would come back, which I did. And then I studied LA Film School here, which was supposed to be a 2-year course, 1 year of study, and then 1 year of, what do you call it, like working in the industry. My school had messed that up a little bit. They had filed all our papers, but they didn't sign any of our papers. So we all got this little note saying, like, yo, it's time for you to leave our country. So, and yeah. I was dating at the time, and so what we decided was to just get married, because, you know, instead of having a long distance relationship. But yeah, so once I got married, I now needed to find a job here. And what's interesting is, like, in Holland, I had already worked I did script continuity, and I was a second AD, and all sorts of like actual industry jobs there, because there's no unions and it's an easier start. And then coming back here, and now that I'm married and I had to find a job once I was legally allowed to work, you don't have that. You don't have a network. You can't just call. There's unions in place, and it's just difficult. So I had all the odd jobs, like the weird, like, okay, talk people into the theater and see if they want to watch this movie, and everybody that shows up, you know, like for test audiences. I was painting walls. I was doing anything I could to just make some money, and eventually ended up with a little bit of luck interning for Fred Roos. And Fred Roos was Francis Ford Coppola's producer. And it's kind of funny that I say a little bit of luck, because internship, like, there was no school test. And you're basically working for free for somebody for, like, I worked for him for like a year or something, just for free, like twice or 3 times a week. But that's kind of like how I got my in, because through him, I got to know Faye Dunaway and Warren Beatty, and I started working like a little bit for these celebrities like Anthony Kiedis, Adrian Brody. And eventually, through Fred Roos, I started working in scripted as a PA, and then kind of like moved my way up. Like, I was just a regular set PA, and then I became a camera PA, and then I always like inserted me into like every department that was there. I was like, hey, instead of just taking out the trash, can I help you? And so they would take you on, because here's a PA that wants to do the extra. And so I think that that's what it kind of like allows you to grow. It's like knowing, like, okay, I can do extra, let me do extra. And so these departments would pick me up and, you know, make me a camera PA, which is a better spot.
So that might have been the big difference in terms of your ability to succeed, not only in that, but also this field as well, because you're always doing a little bit more than the other person.
Yeah, I think you got to kind of read it. Like, you read the situation, and if you see all your coworkers going home, but you see somebody else still struggling with a bunch of cables, you're like, hey, let me help you with your cables. You know, it's just like reading the situation. What I did not read at the time was the writer's strike. And when that happened, there was nothing going on in scripted. And so then I got an opportunity to start for Mark Renette. And Mark Renette is in reality, and he does shows like Survivor and The Apprentice, which I started on. And basically, again, I think with that need to prove myself, it was like, okay, what's the highest function here? That's like, oh, that's executive producer, showrunner. I'm like, cool, then that's what I will become. I will now have to become, fight to prove myself. So that's all right.
Another huge change, right?
Yeah.
Because you're already in this industry, and now you transfer all those skills and take another risk, and you come into doing the Strength Shop. So what was the turning point, the motivating point for you from going from what you worked so hard to do and all in, and now breaking through to here and saying, okay, now I'm going to do another risk. I'm going to turn over and start this new company.
It was health decisions, really. Like I had now established myself in an industry that is, it's safe to say, very unhealthy industry, especially when it comes to mental health. Like it's just, it's not only it's the dog eat dog world in a way. And when I met Melinda, I had built, because of my job, a lot of like bad habits. Like I was drinking too much, I was smoking, I was like trying to get through the days with a lot of stress and a lot of like anxieties in a way, and trying to manage that by all the unhealthy coping skills. So when I met Melinda and I saw like how she was living a life, which was like a lot more free than my very constricted producing life where you're beck and call 24/7, I started to realize that I was indeed like trying to prove myself for other people. Like I was trying to prove myself for my dad that I could do it. And I had moved myself up, but then I looked around like, am I actually happy living this super unhealthy life? So when I met Melinda, I think within the first month I quit smoking. I think within 3 months I quit drinking and never really looked back on any of that. And so when you start making those steps into like a healthier reality, you start to wonder like, well, is this whole producing, is this like really healthy? Because I'm doing it, like everybody wants to win that Emmy because then you can show that Emmy. But if you're up at night, 7 days a week, then is that really worth it? Is that worth it?
Very frustrating.
Yeah. So with Melinda, we started doing more and more in self-development, which has also always been like a hobby for me, like anything spiritual. And so being able to like lean more into that and start doing journeys that work on your self-development, I started to realize more and more that what I was doing in the reality industry is just entertaining somebody for an hour, maybe at night, distracting them from their real life. And what the Strength Shop was doing was helping make people's lives better. And since we were on a personal journey of making our lives better, I chose to, make health the most important thing in my life versus the success that we're supposed to be having.
Status.
Yeah, status.
So how long have you guys been married?
We've been married since 2019. Been together since 2015, end of 15.
As he is 10 years coming up.
Yeah.
Wow. Some people don't make it past 2 years.
Oh,
That has been super easy for us.
2 years is that's the meter, right?
Yeah. Well, I think also there's 7 years that they say.
Yeah, it's
It was all the 7 years plus.
7-year itch.
But again, it's another component, right? Like we're talking about success and try to identify what that exactly is, which takes after one thing. It's not necessarily what you thought would make you happy. And, when I think about happiness or I think about different aspects of, okay, health and fitness, making about, about having to worry about where the next meal is coming from.
Yeah.
Relationships, of course, especially the significant other, and then how we help people forward. And I wonder now that if the components that makes you guys successful in business and in running a store, in your relationship, what components do you feel make you guys so successful that you can have a technical run and be still so happy and are with each other?
Yeah, I have an answer. At least I'd like to start with it.
Do it.
Maybe you can feel it. I think
Simply I'd start an argument, but
I think one of the main things is that from the beginning on, and maybe a little bit through the self-development that we've been doing, but we've quickly learned, and I think also based on past relationships where we were not able to, but to really allow the other person to be themselves, and wholeheartedly allow them and support them to be themselves. And neither one of us came from that. We were not used to that. But I think because we were in previous relationships where you had to be something that you weren't actually, we kind of walked into this relationship let's not do that then. Who are you? And I'm going to support you for who you are. And when you have such a solid foundation where you're freely allowed to be you, then you can now take the extra steps outside of being you and see where you can develop and become even bigger than you already are, instead of having to be something that you never were intended to be anyway. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that totally makes sense. So you guys are able to kind of fill each other's emotional need in that sense where you never had it necessarily before as growing up. Do you feel the same way in terms of, or do you find a different element that makes it successful?
I think we're lucky that we like each other. I think there's a lot of people who maybe get into relationships because the other person is interesting or thrilling to them, but maybe they don't necessarily like the other person. There's a difference between maybe liking and loving. And like, it's easy to accept Arjen. For me, it's easy to accept him for who he is and not want him to be something different, because I actually like who he is. Not only do I love him, but I like who he is. So there's a piece like that, but I think is just like luck, you know?
It's interesting because in dealing with a lot of parents in the past, I heard one dad say this to his son, where he went, I love you to my son, right? But I also like him as a person. Yeah, and you could see his eyes just really lit up, and it instilled a whole new confidence in him. Yeah. I think it's interesting to make that distinction, loving somebody, but liking them also at the same time. Yeah, it adds a whole different dynamic.
Okay, and you just said it yourself, it instills confidence. And if you have that confidence because you're allowed to be you, then you can express that confidence and like you feel supported.
I really like the way that Arjen thinks. I like his integrity. I like where his like moral compass is. So like when you're navigating the world with someone where you just like the decisions that they make personally, yeah, then it becomes really easy to allow them to be themselves,
So the next question I've had is, even in the best of relationships, doing certain things like working together or running the business together can end not only marriages or relationships, friendships, and all kinds of different things can happen. How is it that you guys, as a husband and wife team, can successfully run a business without wanting to every once in a while? Where does that ever happen, and how do you guys navigate through that?
I'd say that happens very little, and usually when it happens, because I know exactly we do our own video recordings, like we've made courses and all that kind of stuff, and with that, normally I produce a crew, and I just point to my DP and I tell them what I want, and like people just move all these stuff into places. But when we shoot our own videos for the Strength Shoppe, I am the entire crew, and I have to do all the hats, and most of them I have no idea about I'm not a gaffer, I'm not a electrician, so some of these things you struggle with. So usually on these recording days, we are always like a little too anxious, I guess. So then you sometimes will snap at each other. But what I think is so successful about it is that we don't take that personal. Like we can see that we're under stress. Like I can see when she's under a lot of work stress, and so you allow the other person the time and the space to just have their moment without like making it personal and be like, you just attacked me, now I have to attack you back, or like tell you why wrong. You just realize like, okay, you are under stress, you're going through a moment, have your moment, I'm not going to lay in on you, and then it passes and we move on. And I think that has been something that has worked for us very magically, that we never are mad at each other at the same time. Does that make sense? Like it's one person preaching right, just guys,
Your own emotional reaction towards a certain thing. Yeah, say, okay, I love this person, I like this person enough to realize that obviously it's not personal. I'm good to go ahead and like this, and encourage the next best step. Yeah, and keep a thing. That's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, it's one of the agreements from the 4 agreements is take nothing personal, and I think that we've listened to that, so we don't. It's just like, okay, you're going through your moment, has nothing to do with me.
It's also like we study somatic experiencing. We're in the program to be practitioners, and you can see visually when you learn somatic work when someone's under so much stress that it's just bubbling out. Most reactions that we have with one another is like an inability to contain the amount of stress or anxiety or whatever that you're feeling in that moment. So a lot of the I guess disagreements in relationships, it's reacting to that, and that has nothing to do with the other person. So if you can recognize, wow, like so and so is feeling this way, and this is the way that they're speaking right now, or the way that they're behaving right now is because of that. It has nothing to do with me. Then there's nothing to react to. It's more about supporting the other person so that they can
You could actually allow
hours they can calm down.
Yeah, and we do that often. Like when you're freaking out, and I give her the moments to freak out instead of telling her, "Oh, you can't do this right now," Yeah. Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting too because you guys had that dynamic of one being risk taker and one being a little bit more conservative. So I think Melinda definitely more the risk taker, and where Arjen is.
I'm a Capricorn. Yeah, I'm a Capricorn. She's a Leo. Yeah.
So give me an example of a risk that you've taken where you've had to have your feet on the ground, or a risk that you made sure happened that.
I mean, I plan all our vacations. Otherwise, we wouldn't go anywhere.
No.
So vacations are a risk nowadays.
Well, it's like the spending of all the money. You're like, yeah. Or
I think it's also like when I met her, I told her like I saw the Strength Shop and I learned what it was, and I said, okay, so we need 3 of these. We need to, and it wasn't my business at the time, but I told like we need 3 of these. We need to create a triangle, but I'll just throw it out. I'm not actually gonna do that. I just said that. But Melinda's like, all right, I heard him say we need 3 of them. All right, now we're gonna do 3 of them. I'm like, wait a minute. That costs a lot of money, and she's already spent it. So then I'm like, okay, but we can save here, and we need to go to a safe area here, and we need to do it this. So yeah, like, and then she'll take the ball. You're right.
basically needs me to pull the trigger, and I'm happy to do it.
And then we'll tell you. And once the trigger is pulled, well, yeah.
Well, that's a brave the chemistry you guys have. And I guess it's now fueling a movement behind your Strength Shop. So give me like a overall vision or a mission for Strength Shop and the direction you guys are taking it.
We definitely, our mission or our vision is that, well, our vision would be a world where everybody has the strength to live their life to the fullest, like to live the life that they want to live.
It's about longevity.
Yeah. So our mission is to give people the strength to, to do everything they want to do in life, whatever that is. And that means physical strength. Obviously, we're a strength training studio, but it also means the emotional resilience and just like the strength of that kind of like, I can do it mentality. One of the really cool things about this workout is that we're taking our clients to this point of momentary muscular failure, which is the point where you're slowly moving the weight back and forth, and you get to this moment where you can't move it. You could move it if you cheated. If you used momentum, if you stopped trying for a second and then started trying again, or if you used a different muscle that you're not supposed to do, arch your back or lift your shoulders or something. But if you maintain proper form and alignment and you're just slowly pulling into it, you're going to reach a point where your muscle won't do it anymore. And that's a fight or flight moment. That's a moment where people tend to feel a little bit of panic, a little bit of anxiety. And when we work to that moment multiple times in a single session, and people live through that, and they get comfortable with that feeling that is very uncomfortable, and they experience a stronger body, it develops this sense of confidence of like, I can live through an uncomfortable moment and become stronger. And I've seen it over and over again because I've been in these sessions where I've done it on this machine and this machine and this machine every week. So there's a strength in the development of like the person or the whole being that I think is really our motivation in this.
So when you work a client towards that point of failure, they're in that fight or flight state of mind, how do you guys as trainers or the trainers that can train, how do you take them from that fight or flight panic disposition and push them through to the other side? Is it something you do verbally? Is it something psychologically? Is it something you have to understand individually about each client?
Yeah, it's more when they start to approach that, because we don't want to approach that. We don't want to get to fight. Like, that's uncomfortable. So it's trying to, the real trick of coaching someone is getting them to the muscle failure point. Once they're there and then we end, they recover automatically. We don't have to do
You're not doing anything.
but getting them to feel safe enough to have that experience is the trick.
Yeah.
And usually, like we use things vocally. Like,
Yeah, also we tell them ahead of time that that's what is going to happen. So when you know it's going to happen, then, you know, you're expecting it. And like what it is that your brain is designed to keep you safe at all times, right? So if you're being chased by, let's say, a tiger, your brain is first going to make you run like crazy to get away from this tiger. But there's a moment, and that is with that muscle failure, where your brain thinks to keep you safe is the best thing to shut down right now, because we've been running like crazy, and to keep all the internal organs like doing their thing, we should stop right now. But the thing is, like, your brain does that before your body actually reaches that point, because it tries to keep you safe. So your brain says, all right, enough weight right now, we should knock this off. And so that's where you read that fight or flight, because your body can still go further. And so that's the moment that we reach, and we go further than that. So your brain's like, stop it. And that's that panicky thing, but your body can still go further. So because we do that, it's like what she was kind of like saying, like, you're training your brain that it is safe enough to take that extra step, let's say. And once you learn that with every machine, like she said, then next time in your own life, when something like that happens, we also know, like, yeah, you're designed not to take any action. Just sit in your space, be comfy here, and do nothing, because I'm not going to say. Right.
Yeah. I was actually going to emphasize the point of learning how to be uncomfortable in uncomfortable positions, whether it be coming from another country, whether you're fighting an eating disorder, whether it be working through your muscles.
Yeah.
It's learning how to be comfortable in an uncomfortable position.
Yeah.
And
learning that you'll get through it, that you're safe after that.
so one of your favorite clients is 90 years old. Is that right?
92. Yeah.
too, yeah.
92, and he got recently written up in the LA Times.
Yeah.
So tell us about that client, why he's one of your favorites, and
It's not just that one client, but it's actually him and his wife.
Yeah.
Like Dee and Pat, 92 and
88?
88, right? Yeah. And they've been with the Strength Shoppe since
2012, early 2012. So they've been with us for 13 years. I can do that. That's what. Yeah, and it's inspiring to see someone begin a strength training program. Like, I think he was in his late 70s, and do it. You know, we've had a client start at age 92. So it's that mentality of, I don't know. There's other people that you hear talk, like they approach 60, and they have this mentality of like, oh well, now's when I'm supposed to be sick and unhealthy.
Yeah, it's too late for me now.
It's too late for me now. Like there was this expectation that I'm gonna have aches and pains. I'm gonna have lots of doctor's appointments. I'm gonna have disease or chronic illness, and I like to see it's really motivational to see some of our clients that are like, no, that's not going to be me. I'm going to be healthy and happy until the day I leave the planet.
so that couple, when they walked in, did they walk in with that mentality initially?
Yeah,
I said, okay, hey, I'm not gonna go out with this. And
they're people who have been active and focused on their health, I think, for pretty much all their lives.
In their case, yeah.
Yeah, and they're
But I think we also have tons of people that teach the trick too. That's not.
Yeah, not everybody comes to it that way. But for them, like I think when they were in their 40s, they sailed around the world in a boat by themselves. They just have done really cool.
They make their own brand. Yeah, they're healthy. Yeah, they take care of themselves.
Yeah.
so, how about a client that maybe wasn't as confident, or didn't come in, or didn't have the self-belief, but still somehow made it through the door? Can you think of a client that you've had you've had a major impact on, that has not only transformed them physically, but on a psychological end?
Yeah, I mean, that's over and over again.
Yeah.
Like the person I think of right away had like debilitating migraines. So this is like somebody that's spending most of their life in bed because of debilitating migraines. And so it's like when someone comes to you for an exercise program in that state of health, you're approaching it with caution. We made this person feel very, very safe. Like, we're not going to do anything that's going to exacerbate the issues that you're already experiencing. And over time, when you work slowly with someone, getting them comfortable with working their body like this, getting them more and more comfortable with muscle failure. And they, the person was our client for many years before they eventually moved away. But by the time, they were moving away and no longer able to be our client, they'd started a new business. Like life had completely changed. It was something where debilitating migraines are getting in the way of what you want to do with your life. And now you're actually doing with your life something really exciting that you want to do, and that's just right. I mean, we have so many examples.
Yeah, we have the people that have walked in with walkers and don't need them anymore, even though they were told, like, sorry, it's just going to get worse from here.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people that have been told to take certain medication for bone loss, and then they, after a while, go back to the doctor, and the doctor's like, wow, fantastic with the pills because they're working. And then they're like, listen, we're not doing any of that. We're only using the Strength Shoppe. And then once they see those results, and they see that their bone density goes up, and it's also just really amazing to see, or start with an 80 or 90-year-old and see them get stronger every week instead of weaker. Like they're aging and every week they're pushing more pounds on the machines. Like that's
I like the little,
awesome.
the little noise when he.
That was her sort of Asia coming down there. That's it. Just doing the Lord's work.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting too, because you're developing personal relationships with I wonder if that's what makes you guys so much more successful, especially to be able to open up 3 shops in such a short amount of time, is that you guys are developing personal relationships with these clients.
It's not definitely, it's definitely the personalized, like as far as even the nutrition work we would do with people is personalized. It's like looking at, we have a food sensitivity test where we find out what foods that individual can't tolerate, what's causing inflammation for that individual. And then as far as the strength training, it's like, what does that person need? How hard can we push them physically within their physical limitations? But how hard can we push them within that emotional capacity they have for the intensity of the exercise? So everything is really personalized with what we do. So that definitely is. But when you asked that at the beginning, I knew immediately what makes us go up. It's like, we have like a really ridiculous eye for detail, and we have an experience like both of our family. If our family had to describe the two of us, it would be like champagne tastes on a beer budget. Like we like the good things. We like going to like a fancy restaurant or a really nice hotel. We like the service where it's like, here's your little warm washcloth before you eat your sushi or whatever it is. So we want our clients to experience that every single time they come in. We want them to feel welcomed, at home, comfortable. And I don't think that a lot of
Part of the community.
part of a community. I don't think a lot of fitness studios are like, even the equipment that we use, there's another brand that's an option to use for slow motion strength training, but the seats aren't as comfortable.
It's not the best. So
no, we like the best. No, we need the best, and we need all of the best upgrades for our equipment, and we need it to be comfortable. And it's just.
We also offer a little more. Like a lot of things are very isolated. Like a gym is a gym, and a nutritionist is a nutritionist, and these things. Or a regular doctor doesn't really per se talk to your nutritionist or knows nothing about nutrition, and it's just like take these pills instead. And so what we're trying to give people is a more holistic like approach altogether, because people, for instance, like people come into the Strength Shoppe like, hey, listen, I need to start working out here because I need to lose some weight. It's like, well, you don't lose weight in the gym per se, you lose it in the kitchen. Like that's, you build your abs in the kitchen. And so what we can offer with the somatic, with the nutrition, and with the workouts, we can offer a much more personal approach to everybody's, like, let's say, healing journey. Like the one thing that we do not believe in is these one-size-fits-all nutrition, whatever diet is a fad right now. So that's why she was talking about the body individuality, like looking at like, okay, I could say like potatoes is the healthiest thing. You should eat 5 of them every day. But if you're allergic to potatoes, then, it becomes a whole different story. So we start with that. It's like, where are you coming from? Like we all know what the healthiest way of eating is. So that's just eat whole foods and stick just to the whole foods. And then that's it. That's all you really need to know. That's the only diet you really need. The thing is, it's difficult to stick to. And that comes down to all the other stuff that we can help you with, like with somatics and all that kind of stuff.
One of the interesting things about business I've always found is once you start to expand, especially when it's quickly, is how to still maintain the same quality level that you guys initially started with. So with your staff and training your staff, how do you guys continue to cultivate culture that's true to how you guys first initially got started to work program?
The trainers that we hire to work with our clients really love our approach because if you go to a traditional gym or like most fitness studios, it's about the sales, and the personal trainer is really a salesperson. For us, we're not focused on sales. We're focused on the service we provide. So we're never going to be, quote unquote, selling something to someone that they don't need.
No.
If they don't need the food sensitivity test, we're not going to try to sell it to them. I think our business is successful because we're really focused on the person in front of us and what they need.
What works for them?
Yeah,
What works for us and how we can make more money out.
Yeah, it's not about how much money we can make off of that single person. It's like, what do they need? And then they tell all their friends about us, and we end up making more money anyway. So it's the best business model, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, that's the vibe I really get from the studio is that it doesn't have to be sold. It kind of sells it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we think is the strongest thing. You know, like if you come in, like we're not going to say like, okay, today, if you sign up, you'll get an extra special that won't be available tomorrow or as soon as you walk out of this door. We're just like, do the workout and go home, think about it. And if you like it, you know where to find us.
Yeah. Our clients say that that's been like really helpful for them because I think when you're trying to make a decision on what you want to do, whether it's buy a car or sign up for sessions at a fitness studio, you just want to be allowed to have the time and space to make the decision that's right for you. And so we give our clients that time and space. It's like, here's what we do. Let us show you how we do it. Okay, here it is. These are our prices. Go home and think about it and see how your body feels and call us when you want to come back in. Yeah. And it's not like,
Must sell.
yeah, you don't have to buy it today.
When we hire our trainers, the most important thing to us is their EQ versus are they trained professionals that know everything about the technique. Like it's the type of person that we hire is what we're looking for.
You say EQ?
EQ, yeah.
The emotional IQ. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So you do a vetting process to make sure that it's not just something they do recreationally or as a hobby, but that they're very emotionally invested in being a trainer and able to relay that to their clients.
People with high levels of integrity and also empathy, is very important. Like knowing, like kind of like putting yourself in the shoes of your client and knowing why they're coming in and not just seeing them as a dollar. Yeah.
That's got to be a tough thing to do too, because there's got to be so many people that want to work here as trainers, but you have to be very discerning about, okay, well, are you right fit for this client or right fit for the culture of the program we're trying to promote?
Yeah.
So it can't just be about sales, or it can't be something that's just myopically about building muscle. It has to be a holistic approach, right? Yeah, we're talking about mental and a psychological aspect. You're talking about a physical aspect. Then you're also talking about an individual aspect, where this person is a fingerprint among all these other human beings that we interact with.
Yeah.
And how do you specifically tailor something to that particular person? That's a big accomplishment to be able to do, and then to have the trainers to do that as well. So I don't envy that. Just put it out, man. I would not want to be able to have to go, okay, who am I going to hire? Who am I going to not, based on these things, and then be able to find it too. That'd be.
Yeah, that's the hard part.
Yeah,
because it's also like a lot of gyms, they're known for their drill sergeants type of mentality. Like they're looking for a drill sergeant that will whip you into shape because you're no good right now. Like, and that's like the opposite of our approach. Like we believe in positivity, and so all if not all of our employees are cheerleaders versus drill sergeants. Like they're on the side of the client, and they want them to do well. They want them to succeed, and they help them get there instead of tell them what to do and how to do it. And if you don't do it this way, then I'm gonna start yelling at you. Give me 10 more. Like it's a different type of approach.
Yeah, it's the opposite of the tough love that you were given as a child. It's the
Supportive.
Let me hold your hand while you do this. Oh my God.
We know you can do it. You're doing it right now.
You did the best job ever.
Yeah, sometimes it's important, right? A person's not confident And a lot of times I had to look at different clients that I had in the past and they're like, I'm confident for you. So you don't have to worry about the failures.
Exactly.
That'll let that be on my shoulders. And that is something that's very reassuring, that somebody can go through something and have it not just be, oh my gosh, what am I getting myself into? And that crashing and burning within the way of your person's own mind, at least.
Yeah.
But so looking ahead, the Strength Shop, you guys have 3 shops. There's 4 shops in the thing. What's the future of the Strength Shop? And for you guys, what it envisioning? 5, 10, what is that? What?
Yeah, we have a bunch of plans, but for now, it's as soon as this third store is completely up and running and is taking care of itself, then we will most likely start a fourth one very soon after. Our longer term goal is to put all these strength shops into buildings that we own. Right now, we're renting, but we'd prefer to own the real estate, and so that's our next step. And then I don't know how many. We'll see what happens on our path, but I would say like most likely, I would say 5, and probably not more than, like, we're not thinking like, we need 900 of these things. Like, we're not really, but it would be nice to like sort of like make us a name in at least the Los Angeles area. Our long-term goal though is to own and operate a retreat center in Kauai where we offer, everything that we've learned.
Sure.
Cool. Yeah.
Smacky. Oh, sorry, Roach. Go ahead.
No, I'm also a breath work facilitator, so we would like to own like our own like retreat center where we can do all the things that we believe in. So breath work, somatic, the workouts, the nutrition type of things, like all different type of events, and hopefully eventually go more into like the
Journeys, plant medicine, when they legalize it for us.
Yes, Trisha, you talked about the breath methods or the meditation on that, and that with having it quieting. And so, what other elements do you think you would bring into that type of an environment that is not necessarily can be done inside of the fitness studio?
I think we're also like waiting for laws to change in a way, because there's a lot of stuff that we've learned through our journeys which have been absolutely life changing. And that's the stuff that if I could recommend it to anybody, it's like, yes, but do it, do it the smart way. And it's like figuring out like what in the future we'll be allowed to do. Like right now, there's already places where they do ketamine therapy. There's places where, states where they're allowing mushrooms to work, therapeutically with mushrooms. And it's like, we just need to see what we can do by the time we get there. But like, we'd love to at least teach people the stuff that we've learned from doing these kind of things, if not doing it with them. Yeah, depending on
It's what you say. It's just there have been so many military veterans that come back, or people that have been dealing with so many different types of abuse.
Yes.
And this psilocybin,
I had a PTSD as well.
that's very eye-opening in that sense. So another one that I've heard from was the MDMA.
Yeah.
And so you guys have some experience in dealing with that. How did that help you guys in terms of seeing what you're doing now or deal with the trauma of the past? And how would you incorporate that if it had been legal in a Kauai?
Yeah, I think that plant medicine, MDMA, it's all really, really, it's life changing. So
What was your personal experience?
yeah, before I met Arjen, and I guess when I met you, I was struggling with relationships. Just could not get into a healthy relationship, and so Arjen and I started dating, and we were definitely in love with one another, but he was coming out of his marriage.
12 years.
And
I did a lifetime, yeah.
he communicated that he wasn't ready for something serious, and I knew that I wasn't, that I was in too deep with him, that I loved him too much to do something not serious and be okay with that. So we decided that we would break up, and then potentially there may be an opportunity in the future. And I just felt devastated, and it was just this pattern of being in relationships and then feeling devastated. And I think that everyone, when a relationship ends, they feel a sense of loss, and then there's an adjustment period. But the way that I felt different. And I think in the moment after we decided that we were gonna stop seeing each other, I recognized that the way I felt was probably not normal or healthy. It felt like being thrown into like the hole of solitary confinement. I felt like I couldn't grieve. I felt like I was starving. I felt like I was in so much pain I'd rather die than continue. And it was like, this is the type of pain I dealt with when relationships ended. And so I knew that that was probably not what other people were experiencing. Or if it were, then maybe it wasn't the healthiest thing. And so I had a friend who had been telling me about the MDMA journeys specifically. And I had been saying, no, like, I'm not really into the whole drugs thing. You know, my father had issues with addiction, like he was an addict. And so this just wasn't for me. I wasn't going to go down that path. And at this moment, I called her up and I said, give me the MDMA. I am desperate enough to do anything at this point. I don't care anymore. And I had my first MDMA journey with her and my roommate at the time and 2 facilitators. And it was absolutely changed everything about that dynamic for me. When I went into the journey and the MDMA started to like work, basically, the facilitator asked me what my love language was. And I said, oh, it's words of affirmation and physical affection. And she's like, no, you can only have one. And when she said I could only have one, it was like something exploded and a light bulb went off. And I was like, oh, it's physical affection. And it just, all the pieces went together in the puzzle. And I was like, every time a relationship with a romantic partner ends, I lose physical affection because nobody else in my life physically touches me. And I realized my family was 3,000 miles away. So it's not like I get hugs from my family. I get physical affection from a romantic partner, and that's it. And when that romantic partner is gone, there's no more physical affection. And so what the MDMA taught me was that I had only felt love through physical affection. I had never felt or experienced love through any of the other ways you could feel love. So when I was on the MDMA and I had this realization, I began to feel love from words of affirmation, from quality time, from gifts, from acts of service. And I realized all of these different people in my life had been loving me this whole time and I'd never been able to feel it. I could intellectualize it. I could be like, oh, so-and-so said this about me or did this for me or spent this time for me. And I could intellectualize that as they care about me. But I didn't feel it in my body. And so the MDMA opened up those pathways and I felt it for the first time. And that just healed everything. The next day I went to the coffee shop. I went to work and I went to the coffee shop and they know who I am. And so when I was in line, they started to make my drink before I got up to order it because they know I go to work next and I didn't have to wait for my drink to be made by the time I ordered it. And I could feel that as love. It's just people at a coffee shop that know I'm making my drink before I order it. But I felt it was like very moving for me because I was like, oh, wow, like they care about me. They didn't have to do that. And so instead of being so starved for love from a significant other, from a romantic partner, I was now able to feel love from so many different places, so many different people, that there wasn't this pressure on a romantic relationship. And I was able to look at the relationship I had with Arjen, who I loved, who wasn't ready to be in a committed relationship. And I was able to communicate with him like, I got it before the journey. I was like, I totally understand where you're coming from, but this is what I need. But I was also like, it doesn't mean that we don't love each other. Just because you don't marry a person or like, you're not boyfriend, girlfriend, doesn't mean you don't love each other. The love doesn't disappear when you say you're not gonna be boyfriend, girlfriend, or you're not going to, the love doesn't go away. And so I was still able to feel the love from him and for him. And then, of course, we just got married.
Yeah, you just come out of a long relationship, and I was told by everybody around me that I needed time for myself. Don't jump into the next relationship because you've been in one for so, like all the common sense type knowledge people throw at you.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not. And so I listened to that, but it's like, okay, I can't be in a relationship because I just wasn't blunt. That was miserable. So I should stay single and learn to find myself and blah, blah, blah. And so when I did my first journey, I thought it was going to work. It's like some truth serum. I started to say, hey, listen, I need to follow my, I need to be by myself and learn how to be. And instead, as soon as it started working, I saw that I was just listening to what other people said that's the best thing for me instead of just following my heart. And if I would follow my heart, then the situation that I'm in feels pretty comfortable. So why not, be just good with the situation as this? And so, yeah, instead of breaking up, we thought that was that. So it took me one journey, and after that, enough to convince me that we were pretty good together.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, we guys are both.
We cut the bargain way.
Yes, we got on our own.
Yeah, because just to see to have that dynamic of being powered couple, where you guys are able to achieve so many different things on all kinds of different levels.
Yeah, I think it also helps that we both have our own strengths. And they're not the same. And in a lot of relationships that we've got, like I said, like if, let's say, one person does the dishes and the other person was not, that the person that does the dishes gets upset with the other person that didn't do it,
Yeah.
And we, of course, one of us is better at doing dishes than the other. I won't say who. But we don't, we allow one person that's good at the chore to do the chore, and the other person does chores that they're good at instead of trying to even it out like you must do what I do. So she takes care of her things and I take care of my things. And we kind of like do the same when it comes down to the business, like we each have our areas and responsibility, I would say. And they're different, and we're not like punishing the other person for not doing the same thing that, the other person was doing.
Yeah. So if you wanted to give last words of advice to people that are either entering into business or going into a new relationship or trying to extend themselves out to help other people, what would be your best bit of advice to help them forward and to try to achieve the successes that you guys have had?
I think that my advice would be to be authentic. Sometimes we choose either relationships or career paths that we think we should do. And we don't even know that we're doing that because we're kind of so brainwashed is the wrong word, but
I don't think that's far off.
We think that that's the track we should be on. So we continue to follow it, and it's really not what we're meant to do. And I think that if you follow the thing that's most exciting, the thing that you're most interested in. I used to have, because I came out here to be an actress, and I came out here and I was doing stand-up comedy. I was really good at it. It was really fun. But there was a piece about it missing for me. And that piece was like the service, like the what am I doing in the world? How am I bettering the world? Like, what am I bringing to the world that is really me, And so I would constantly feel like I should be in front of the camera or doing that because it felt really good and I really enjoyed it. But that piece of the service was missing. And so then I would feel like something was missing when I was just training clients at the Strength Shoppe or running the Strength Shoppe. And so kind of finding a way to marry the two where I can be a leader in the business and have like that leadership amongst other people and we make our content and we make our videos with the service that I want to provide to the world is like how I found where I needed to be. And so it was like, find what lights you up and just keep following the things that light you up, the things that feel good, the things that are exciting, and trust that you're on the right path, even if you don't know exactly what it is yet.
And that's why Gucci, I want to be first on guest list, please. And then hopefully we'll be able to do another one of these once you guys either open your fourth place or get that to the right place going.
So
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much again for doing on this show.
I appreciate it. Yeah.